Update 5.2 has not been a very positive update at all for Battlefield 5. Loads of creators have voiced their concerns, and the community is clearly not very happy at all. Whether you dislike the spotting changes, the alterations to TTK, the widely criticised gun balance, or even the new map Wake Island, which is once again dividing opinion, Battlefield 5 is really in quite a rough place for the second Christmas running. It's a real shame that DICE have got into this mess again, and it's no one's fault but their own. If they had followed community advice and really done what most of the community have been asking for ages, we'd be looking at the Christmas period with a really good community games section, some new maps from the Pacific, and everyone would be fairly happy. Instead, we have a game that not that many players really are that invested in. A few people like the TTK changes, but overall the community is banding together in opposition to the changes DICE have made. That being said, DICE have released a community broadcast. It was dropped yesterday by the community manager Part Welsh. Now, he states that DICE are really looking at the changes that they've made and believe that the changes were beneficial to Battlefield 5. They have though acknowledged issues with spotting and the TTK, and that they have failed to meet some of their goals. I think a lot of this has to be down to the backlash from the community. You can't have a game like Battlefield 5 and expect the community to take this sort of stuff without responding negatively. They do, however, state that they set out with the intent of clarifying the roles of different weapons in Battlefield and how they perform at range, without impacting the overall TTK, and with the intent to preserve the lethal nature of Battlefield 5's gunplay, whatever that means. Now, the TTK has been impacted across the board. Every weapon takes longer to kill, and in some cases you're basically not going to be able to kill somebody with a single magazine. You can't hit every bullet with the FG42, and even if you did, it's going to take you over 50% of your magazine at range, which is absolutely ridiculous. Now, they have spoken about this previously, and I'm going to mention it again. The communication with changes like this is appalling. It comes out of nowhere, no real complaints, and then bang, you have massive game-wide changes that rip apart the game from top to bottom. DICE seem to think that the global kills per minute are up across the board with this change, and that they've not reduced the pacing of the game at all. Now, I'm someone who plays Battlefield, and I know for a fact that the pacing is different. I'm forced to play at close range with some weapons and long range with others. Maybe my KPM has gone up because I'm focusing more on using weapons that are specifically good at specific things, and I'm catering my playstyle towards that. It's less fun, and it's boring. I don't really care if the KPM is higher across the board. Stats like this have absolutely no place in justifying changes that the community, the people that play the game, dislike. The post then goes on to state that the FG42, SL1907 and MG42, and again most fast-firing SMGs, have been receiving a TTK nerf, when in fact DICE came out and said it wasn't a TTK change. Also in this post it states that it wasn't intended to be a TTK change. So communication all over the place. It's like they don't even know what they're doing to their own game. If we take a look at the changes that DICE are going to be implementing though, and they're testing currently, clearly they're not happy with what they've got right now. The ZK, EMP, MP40 and Sten will have an improved damage model from 4 to 11 bullets to kill to 4 to 10, so they're just making them a little stronger at range. The Light Bolt ZK, the MP28 and the Tommy and Suomi will have an improved damage model from 5 to 13 to 4 to 10, with a faster damage drop off than the MP40. Again, you're going to see more recoil return, but also less bullets to kill. This is the same across the board with a lot of weapons in Battlefield. They seem to be going back on what they've said, making weapons more effective in CQB, mid-range and slightly longer range. Yes, it will still be a TTK nerf compared to what we saw before, but they're clearly dialing back what they originally intended to change with Battlefield. A complete list of the individual changes, or at least proposed individual changes to weapons, can be found in the description down below. Overall, I think it's a good change because that mid to long range engagement with anything that wasn't a sniper was really poor. At least now we'll have more options. There are some additional changes to the enemy acquisition icons as well. Videos with a description can be seen in the background now as an example. So as you can tell from the 3 examples in the background, and I do apologise for the low quality of those, they were taken from Twitter, there are a few changes coming to spotting that I think brings it to, well, it's certainly a better place. Is it exactly where everyone else in the community wants it? I think it might be there or thereabouts, assuming DICE actually make these changes. Also, the gameplay you see in the background from now on, and 1 or 2 clips before, is from before the patch, and like many other people, I really just haven't had the incentive to go and play Battlefield, and of course, I get footage for videos when I play the game. This stuff is from a few months ago, with the odd camping AT rifle on grind. It was that week when the AT rifles came out. And the one you see in the background now is from Operation Underground when it first released using the Suomi. It kind of gives you a bit of a throwback to what the weapons did feel like before this update, if you're one of those players that never really noticed the difference. Aim assist auto rotation has also been added in the 5.2 update, and console players are not happy. Sure, new players coming to the game that might not be accustomed to playing an FPS game will benefit from this, and it makes the game more enjoyable for players who are very bad. Now, don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with that. Why not have a server that new players are thrown into for console when they're level 1 to level 10 and they get this auto aim assist turned on, just to cushion them into the Battlefield experience. I think that is what DICE are worried about. They're worrying that new players are going to be put off by the more hardcore players. Imagine jumping into a Battlefield game and the first thing you come up against is Max Zeke, who's level 300 or something like that at the minute. Absolutely crazy. And he is invested in the franchise, but for a new player it's not great. So that's what the auto aim assist is supposed to do. Same with the TTK. I think it's meant to allow these new players more room to breathe. The problem is, you're annoying your current player base, or most of the current player base, and that's certainly not a good model to adapt. Of course, there are things that need to be implemented in Battlefield 5. Stuttering, as you'll see with a couple of examples towards the end of this video, massive stutters that are just so irritating to play. For me personally, it makes the game unplayable at times. I think they're related to that program, or whatever it's called, Denovo I think it's referred to, that prevents people cracking and downloading the game illegally. That in turn has a negative impact on the way the game runs and gives you CPU spikes and messes around with your RAM. Battlefield 5 has it, and I have these lags. Battlefield 1 also had it, I think, maybe it did, not too sure, but some modern games also have it, and they are running quite poorly. Now, I don't blame DICE for having it in the game if it's what is required to prevent people from cracking the game, but it just makes my experience worse. And on top of that, you do have team balancing issues and cheaters. There's the stutter in the background on Hamada. I'm not talking about 1 second stutters, that is 3 or 4 seconds, and I get a couple of those every game. Leave your comments down below to what you think about this change by DICE. It's quite a major shift going back on what they've said, almost like a mirror image of this time last year. Will they actually stick to their guns and keep this TTK setup somewhat like the 5.2 update, or do you think they'll go right back on it, reverse in the start of January, maybe midway through January, just completely blitz it and put it back to how it was in update 5.0, kind of round where the Pacific maps dropped? Another stutter in the background there on Pacific Storm. Really annoying stuff when you lose a gunfight because of it. I think there are more important issues DICE should be focusing on, as opposed to messing around with the TTK. No one wanted this change, and it certainly hasn't been received well. Will they learn from it? Well, history has shown us no they won't. DICE are completely oblivious to what the community want. Sure, the community managers understand it, and the people responsible for some of the changes do understand, but the guys in charge of making these massive game-wide decisions are completely clueless. They don't know what the community wants, and I'm not going to sit here and say that I enjoy the game in its current state. I think it's awful. Maybe you're in the same boat, maybe you're not. I'm interested to see what you have to say. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.